Hi there. What I find really sad is that people are complying and not speaking up against these absurd rules about masks. Masks are highly dangerous, very, very dangerous if you do your research. If you just stop and research and don't use mainstream media, don't use Wikipedia, who leaves out really important factors. And it's really fascinating who must be behind Wikipedia, obviously, because they are sure controlling the narrative there also. I thought the world stopped so we could get off. But instead, so many people are buying into the fear mongering, the control, the manipulation. How can this tiny percent, far less than 1%, create this kind of control and fear across a planet? It's because, as my mom said when I was a kid, Hitler couldn't happen if we questioned authority. All this fake news that's out there. People they're glued to their televisions, and you can tell because they can't even walk through a park and not be paranoid that they're going to get something. It's really sad to see. I'm very, very familiar with how dangerous these masks are unless they're the proper type that have oxygen coming in and out of them. So, it's absurd what people are buying into, because the dangers of a mask, not only for our health and what that does to the body and how disease then actually releases from the body, old disease and viruses come up because the body's now in panic. But also what will happen down the road, respiratory issues, all kinds of things. I used to design, but I also did Venetian plasters and faux finishes, and I know the dangers of a mask and what it does. And some of that stuff doesn't come up to many, many years later, decades later. So watch the respiratory problems, all the other problems that are going to come with this down the road. And what are they going to link it to? They're not going to link it to the masks because, God forbid, they don't want you to know that they're killing you and you're going along with it. And the one thing I'm really disappointed in Trump is that he hasn't yet said, this is ridiculous. And oh my God, I'm sorry, it's not okay. You're not only killing people, but you're also responsible for taking people then down a path toward communism. I remember thinking when I found out that Henry Ford was supplying all of this, not only money, but vehicles to Hitler. Of course, they wouldn't take them directly there because, God forbid, the American people found out. And we didn't have the media we have now, but still we had the corrupted newspapers, right? And so we have weaponry coming from the United States to support Hitler. We had big pharma like Bayer, and we had the Rothschilds and the concentration camps, which were creating these horrible experiments. All of these companies were a part of that. And all of them, people are buying their drugs from these people that are murderers. And it's all okay because we're just a bunch of sheep. We only search whatever comes to us on our television or the first thing we see on the internet. I like seeing both sides of something. That's one thing my dad taught me. Look at all sides of something. And when something smells and just reeks, drop it. My God. And I thought, well, if people had more access to the internet like what we do now, it wouldn't have happened because people would have known. And now I find in 2020, that's a lie. Because we have internet, we have all of this communication, but people aren't researching. They're only looking at one side of something. They're not questioning what they're hearing, the narrative on the mainstream media or newspaper, whatever. And they're not looking at who actually owns these newspapers, who are funding these newspapers. I've spoken about this before. When I found out that why newspapers were changing everything I was saying, it was because who their sponsors were, who their owners were. And that's when I gave up on that. And I stopped talking to the press all those years ago. So we have to wake up. We have to get off of that merry-go-round, but also say, enough of this. We're not going to let them force us into this communism, which is what masks are about. It's to create, have you noticed? I don't wear a mask when I'm out walking. I wore a mask one time, and then I put it underneath my nose. But how many people were walking down the street in their masks? So when I smile, they couldn't smile back, but most of them turn away because they are so fearful. They're fearful to live, of life. They're so afraid that this virus is going to kill them, even though the statistics don't support that at all. I'm supposedly more at risk than all of these people. And I've been exposed to it the whole time because I want to build up those antibodies. I want to build that up for the next thing they come up with. So this only makes sense. Why wouldn't I want to be exposed to it? Now, I'm not going to stand around with somebody's coughing or sneezing in my face, but I'm not going to freak out about that anyway. I know how to wash my hands. I know how to wash my feet. Wash my face. I know how to wash my feet too. Anyway, I mean, just think about what we're doing. They're trying to separate us and make us non-human, make us robotic, that we're afraid to have relationships with people, that we won't communicate with them and be friendly and have conversations, just in the park, everybody's distance. It's ridiculous, but this is absolutely absurdity. And this dream state needs to be called on and end. It's beyond now, okay? We don't need to turn into a communist country, and that's what we're doing. We're not questioning authority. Socialism leads to communism. And we've become a socialistic, doing what you're told society. And boy, are we easy to control. Holy crap. So you might want to look back how Hitler happened, and you might want to look back at the communist rule in China. People aren't smiling anymore. They're not talking to you anymore. They're becoming, why I say it's more becoming a pathway into communism, socialism and communism, is because when I was training in Venetian plasters and faux finishes and some other design things in New York many years ago, coming from the West Coast, I'd walk down the street and go, hi, and cross the street and say hello, and nobody would respond. They looked at me like I was crazy. And I thought, whoa, boy, these people are not friendly. But okay, that was just their way. Whatever it was in this big city, which I, after a while, had to get out because I felt like a rat in a cage, is what I felt like. But I noticed, too, when I went to a training, the people were looking away when we walk down the street, or they keep their eyes down to the ground. And I asked one of them that we had met in a restaurant, because they were very friendly people when you got, when they were introduced to you, and they just were hungry for knowledge and especially spirituality. And because they had been in a communist country for so long, people were afraid to look up. They didn't want to be seen. I always wondered about the people in China when they'd come to the United States, and I'd see them with masks on. This was 10 years ago, and I felt so sorry for them that they didn't understand what they were doing, primarily because of their fear. The fear the communism had shoved down their throats fear for themselves, their family, their friends, to the point they were telling on their neighbors. And it was a very interesting thing to find this about the Chinese people. And I always felt badly that they were so misinformed and they were such slaves to this Communist Party. Whatever that conditioning is, that then we start picking up. And that definitely wasn't something I wanted to pick up. Now, to me, that is so sad that that's what the world had come to. But now, when I see it in the United States and people conforming, they refuse to stand up and do research on all sides, deep research from experts that are being removed from the internet, removed. When you see anybody that's being removed or they're really talking against them, start researching them. And usually they're the ones that had the courage to stand up against those that were being controlled and manipulated through the pharmaceutical companies, greed, through fear of loss of their job, their career. But so many of them refuse to bow down to that. But unfortunately, it's such a small percent. If we don't all start speaking up, we've lost this. We will go from socialism then into communism. And if you don't think that's true, then I feel really sad for you, because you are not researching on a deep level. You don't even have to do it on a deep level. Dana Ashley put a post out recently about white slavery. And, well, actually it wasn't called white slavery, but so much for the privilege, right? I'll put the links down below. But what it was sharing was that there was white slavery in Africa before there was black slavery in North America. Now, she may not have said that. Hers is very good, and it's definitely worth watching. I started researching then. I could not believe what I found out about white slavery in America and all over Europe. And so what they're not telling us is not only about black slave, they're telling us about black slavery. Basically, that's it. Let's keep everybody plotted against each other. Let's keep it so we can manipulate you and control you. Let's keep it that we can fight against each other so we're not, it's that false flag. Let the whites and the blacks fight, or some other race fight, so they're not looking at what we're doing. The horrendous game we're playing as puppeteers. So this is enough. The Irish were in slavery. It was horrible what they went through. It was horrible what the white people went through. It was horrific. Black people, the Indians, everybody. It wasn't just the blacks. And the interesting thing was that the first black slave, a gentleman that got a lifetime as a slave, was because of a wealthy tobacco farmer and his wife, who took it to court and was able to make this black man a slave for life. The interesting part was, it was a black man that started that. He was the first slave owner that could have somebody for life. But they're erasing all of this stuff from our history books, because they don't want us to realize we've all been through horrific things. They want us to feel guilty and small and subservient and plotting against each other and poor me. God, enough of the poor me. Are we freaking done with that card? I mean, let's move forward. Let's move forward together, because it's really time that this stopped, that we left these creepy, we allowed this sickness, this disease, the pharmaceutical companies, the vaccine companies, the Bayers, Monsantos, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, all of them, that we've allowed this. I'm really disappointed that Trump is not taking a bigger stand in this. He knows so much more. The hydroxychloroquine with zinc, it was very powerful, and you have to watch Dale Bigtree's link. I'll put that underneath one that he did, and it's really wonderful, and it talks about why you need the zinc. And no, you can't just take zinc because it's like it doesn't penetrate the cells, and it's actually the zinc that goes in and stops the disease. So it's the hydroxychloroquine is like this doctor on there used the analogy of a gun, and the zinc is the bullet, but it gets in there where it needs to go in, whereas otherwise it doesn't. It's worth listening to. And the rant at the beginning of a gentleman, bless his soul, for getting up in front of some kind of Congress thing. You'll see. I'm sorry, my brain is fried today. I was out and I realized that the governor of Oregon implemented this stupid ass rule about the 1st of July. You had to wear masks in restaurants and all this kind of stuff. And since that's not a law that he can actually enforce, it's not the law. It's actually deadly to us. Restaurant owners need to take a stand and say, no, you can't do this. And they're not. They're complying. So therefore, I won't be eating at any restaurants or any place that makes me, wants me to put on a mask. And I did go into a grocery store, but I put it underneath my nose because, sorry, I'm not going to be one of your stupid statistics with this bullshit COVID thing, because I'm breathing in my own toxins back where the body was trying to get rid of it. And we all know that, I lived in Hawaii many years ago, and the more chemicals they use, the stronger the chemicals, the more resistance the cockroaches got. And so anything that survived the last round of highly toxic, which is, of course, killing everybody in the household. I never used that kind of stuff. It was horrific. Get some geckos in there, boy. They'll eat them. What we do is we kill ourselves with our higher and higher dosages of the poisons that we allow people to, or not me, but so many people run to the pharmacy for their drugs and their vaccines. But I'd rather be exposed to it. I'm in that so-called high-risk category, and I haven't been wearing a mask at all. I've worn one once, twice under my nose. And I won't even do that now. It's absurd. So I'm not going to kill myself because I'm one of these scared little people that are running around believing and so easily controlled. And that's scary, that they're allowing these puppeteers to control them and to live in a world of fear. What a shame. What a waste of a life. I wouldn't want to even live that life, to live in fear. That's not going to be mine. All right. Over and out. Love you guys. I'll put the links in the bottom. Hope you're doing well. Don't comply.